Oh, she's so cute.
This little face.
So cute.
I know. I've already become obsessed with this one. She knows when she's on camera, though. Is that like she won't ever look at the camera. She'll be looking at me with like the cutest little face. And I'll be like, let me grab my camera. I go and grab it and put it up. And then at that point, she looks away.
No.
What is that about? So welcome, everybody.
It moves.
Welcome. Happy Sunday. Sunday before Memorial Day.
Sunday fun day of Memorial Day. Yeah, there you go.
No, I've got matcha latte.
Matcha latte.
Green.
I got whiskey with ginger ale. It's the breakfast of champions. So today we are talking all about dogs. And one of the reasons we are talking dogs, well, we have a couple reasons we're talking dogs today, is this one is new to my family. So this is my newest family member, Miss Piggy.
Yes.
A gift to us from my mom. And I know she snores. She snores loudly. When she's really excited about something, or she's receiving love that she really, really enjoys, she snorts very loud, and it's very adorable. And here with us today is one of my very dear friends, Tamale Sepp.
Hello. Ooh, Tamale in the balance.
And then, as always, my sister bitch, Sammy, my co-host sister bitch. And you know, one of the other reason we're talking dogs today is Tamale is actually helping us sort of like break Miss Piggy into our living arrangements right now.
Just like a gang. It's a jump-in situation. We have to break her. Break her.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what the verbiage is for that because I've never actually owned my own dog. You know, and so there's also that piece. Though I've lived with several pets, and that's a kind of thing I've never opted to take care of my own dogs. But Tamale, you actually have a lot of experience in taking care of dogs, training dogs. And before we really dive into the topics that we chose around dogs today, I wanted to get an idea of who you are and why we should even listen to you and your opinion on dogs.
Don't do it.
I don't know, Tamale. I've met your dogs on numerous occasions, especially Lucy. I've met numerous. Like I must say, when I got Cody, it was kind of in my mind because I met Lucy before I got Cody, and Lucy was so cute and so well trained. And I was like, if I ever get a dog, my dog will be well trained. I don't know what I'm doing, but I read tons of articles and was like, I have to make sure that my dog is spot on because I really admired the way that you had trained Lucy and the way that you were with her. And so I appreciate you. And yeah, please tell our audience who you are, what you do, and your dog love.
Well, thank you, Sammy. First of all, that's so sweet and kind. I've been working with dogs since I was about 9. I got into 4-H when I was a kid and started training dogs. And pretty soon, I'm going way back. So like when we had a dog, we had one dog, and I really wanted to. We started to win, right? And I really wanted another dog so that as we moved up in the ranks, I could get another dog and start working that dog. And we had a family meeting because that's how we roll in my household at home in Arizona. And we were just like, you know, I wanted another dog, and it was not something that was going to work for our family, right? So not to be deterred, I was like, okay, if I can't have another dog, how can I get another dog? So I had some conversations with my neighbors, and I was like, hey, listen, I want to train another dog. Can I train your dog and trade for something? And this is like, I was like, maybe I wasn't even in high school yet. I was like maybe 10, 11 at this point. Wow. And so I kept doing that. And what would happen is I'd have my dog, and then I'd have a neighbor's dog, and then we'd go up a rank, and then I'd get another neighbor's dog and go up a rank. So pretty soon I'd start showing up to these little 4-H shows with like 5 dogs in tow. We'd sweep a show. We'd be in all these different categories and be like, ah, just like take all the trophies. And it was because, you know, that gave me an opportunity to work with different dogs, different breeds, different mindsets, different ability levels, like just different dogs, lots of, you know, a gradient of experience. And then, you know, and then I was able to have, you know, as an adult now, I have my 2 dogs, Lucy and Edgar Allan Woe, and they are just the best. They're like little 16-pound little Cavalier, King Charles Cavalier mixes, just little calf mixes. But they travel with me. And I think, just to speak to what Sammy was saying, I think a huge part of what makes dog ownership such a joyful experience for me personally is making sure that my dogs behave and are not nuisances. In fact, like the best compliment I can get as a dog mom is, oh, I didn't even know they were there. It's like, good. That means that they're not barking at people. They're not being, you know, an obnoxious distraction. They're not, you know, misbehaving or getting into mischief. They have their crates that they go into where they feel safe. They have toys that they know are theirs to play with. They're not destructive. And they mind their manners, no jumping on people or acting a fool. Like, we just, you know, and also with the caveat that I also have a job. My job is to run interference. No, you may not talk or touch my dog. Oh, can I pet your dog? Thank you. No, you can't pet my dog. And the reason is because it's, imagine if as you walk down the street, just anyone who wanted to touch you got to touch you. Mm-hmm. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's an invasion of your personal space.
Or even imagine walking down the street and people ask if they can touch you. You know, even the asking of consent to touch a stranger on the street would be a little weird.
Yeah. Well, Cody often, I have a Yorkie poo. He's very cute and fluffy and has this little fro all over his body.
He's very cute.
He's so cute. He's so
low, girl. He's real cute.
All the time on the street, oh, can I pet your dog? And my response is always, he won't let you. You can try. Cody won't let, if he doesn't know and trust you, he will not consent. Yeah. He does not consent. He will like dodge. He wants to sniff. He's curious, but he won't let them.
Yeah. I like to create so that they don't have, it's not, first of all, like as humans, part of at least the way that I experience my dog ownership and leadership and relationship with my dogs is that I'm the boss. I'm the leader. I say that you can't go and attack other people. I say that you mind your manners. I say these things. And as such, I have a responsibility as the leader of this little mini pack. I have a job to protect you. I feed you. I make sure you're safe. I don't allow other people or other dogs to attack you. That's my job. So even though a person wanting to pet my dog isn't attacking them, it's an invasion, and it can be experienced as a violation by my dogs. So, there are environments in which, it's a little different. If we're like in at my house, or wherever I am, if I'm in a place, and wherever I am, if I'm in a place and, and the dogs are off the leashes and someone who's, can I pet your dogs? And it's someone I know and they don't have a dog with them. I might be like, oh, okay, let them come to you. Edgar Allan Woe, when I got him, both of my dogs are rescues. And when I got Edgar, he was just very submissive, just scared of everything. And working with him over time and letting him know, like, I'm not going to let people approach you and touch you with their hands. And also, if you consider how many people ask to pet your dog and how gross their coats would become if you let everyone pet them, it's just like, no, I don't want all those germs on my dog. It's disgusting.
Yeah. So. I do, and it makes me think of times when I've been on, a sidewalk or a street and a dog will approach me and say hello to me and come and start to sniff me and start to like nose me. And my attitude toward that and how I don't welcome that personally, to imagine going the other way makes a lot of sense,
And Carrie, you bring up an interesting point as well. Not everybody loves dogs. In fact, I used to live in a building where there were a lot of people who did not like dogs and they were genuinely afraid of dogs and they didn't want anything to do with them. And even the most well-mannered, well-behaved dog, if they don't like dogs, this is not the moment to convince them otherwise. And what's definitely not going to help support creating an environment where everyone gets to feel comfortable, especially in there. And I say that like in the realm of your house, right? It's like, okay, we're not going to have a world where everyone feels comfortable all the time. Fine. But like in your own building, you should have a semblance of security and like feel, I don't know, like you can be at ease. And so if you have to ride in an elevator with dogs and you don't care for dogs, what you definitely want to do is make sure that you have dogs that are going to behave, not jump on people, not be sniffing them. They're just going to leave them alone and just be at your side and be patient and wait to go potty outside. No big deal.
Yeah. Well, and as far as like people petting dogs, I mean, like I said, Cody is very shy. He does not like strangers touching him. And then there are some dogs that I've certainly seen on the street that want to be pet by everybody and are very, very social. And so would you say that for those dogs, if, because everyone knows their dogs differently. And of course, some rescues are going to be a little more skittish around humans they don't know, whereas other dogs might not feel that way. So would you say that it's a dog per dog basis on whether or not people can touch them, pet them on the street?
I think that it's up to the owner to provide leadership to their dog. And if you have a dog that like wants to be petted and wants to interact, then at that point you can have your dog available to do that. But at no point, my frustration is with owners that are like, oh, don't worry, he's friendly. And the dog is coming up to me and I'm like, I don't want your dog on me.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I definitely feel the same. These scars are from a dog attack.
Oh
So-
yeah, that's right.
Seriously?
Hey, so that's something to talk about. I didn't even think about that. And then show your tattoo behind your ear.
Oh, I have a tattoo behind my ear of a rabid dog biting me. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it real well.
Dude.
So yeah, I got this ear bitten off, 80 staples, reconstructive surgery. So yeah, I don't like big dogs. Dogs that
Understatement of the year. Not a big fan of big dogs.
I don't like big dogs. So in my mind, the assessment of whether or not I'm comfortable with a dog is if shit went down, could I take this dog?
Yeah.
And that for me is like whether or not I'm comfortable. Like, could I dominate this animal, or is it stronger than me?
Yeah.
And that's sort of my assessment of whether or not I'm comfortable with an animal. And so, yeah, big dogs on the street, do not want them near me. I will like walk around them.
So when I see people who are not, they lack the self-awareness to recognize that that not everybody wants to touch, and not everyone wants to pet your dog, and not everyone wants your dog coming up to them and being friendly. The way that I lead my dogs is that they are to be relaxed. Their job is to chill. Their job is to just be, like in community and not go up to other people or other dogs. No, I don't want them to meet your dog. No, unless there is unless I know your dog and I know your dog is like well behaved and there's not gonna be a fight. Like dog fights are scary and they're expensive, and people get hurt in them. I don't want any part of that crap. So no,
Jamali, will you explain why a dog fight? Because you've taught me so much in just like the last 2 days about dog ownership. Like there, some of the things that you told me, like don't let your dog meet other dogs that you don't know. Like you were like, I don't know if they got their shots. I don't, and I was like, that's a really good point, because I've been around dog owners enough to see the variety of treatment that people, give inside of their ownership. And so, and I was like, gosh, I didn't really even think of that. And then when you talked about dog fights and what you said specifically about that and why those are so dangerous, I just figured that'd be interesting for the audience to know too, because I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I mean, they do happen, and they vary in intensity, and a lot of that intensity has to do with whether or not a person gets involved, right? Like if a child gets bit, if there's a dog fight happening, one of my biggest fears is when I see a child walking a giant dog that they have no control over, because then that kid is like tasked with walking this dog. It can't physically hold back. And also when I see people who are walking like a burlier dog or a really strong dog, and they don't have the dog here. The only way that they're walking that dog, it's usually in a harness, or but the dog is pulling them. They don't have the dog here. They're not leading the dog. They're just physically restraining the dog, and they're struggling. That when I see that, I'm like, hell no. Like, we're not going anywhere.
And that's gotta be stressful for both parties.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think what's really hard is when I see someone who has that experience. This is what I was kind of saying in the beginning of this meeting. It's like, my little sister said this to me one time, and it's just always stuck in my brain. I was like, oh God, I love Lucy. I love Edgar. I just love him so much. And she's like, you're the kind of person who, when people see you and your dogs, that's why they get a dog, because they want that, but they don't know how to train their dogs to yield that experience. And so then they end up with this dog that's not behaving, and they don't know what to do. And they're like, man, this isn't, it then becomes like, what am I doing wrong? Or did I just get a dud of a dog? Which that's very rare. The way people screw dogs up, it's like, it's not the dog's fault most of the time. Every once in a while, you'll get a dog that's got, some insurmountable issues, but that is a very rare case. It's usually people who are not reading a dog appropriately. Like, for example, sometimes you'll have a dog who will, a dog that will growl, show aggression towards other dogs, and people are like, oh, no, it's okay. When you do that and you adopt that sort of that comforting, what you're doing is you're telling it, you're not providing strong leadership. What you need to do, and again, it's like, depends on the situation. I don't want to blanket statement this, because it really does depend on the situation. I would rather have a dog that growls to indicate a boundary so that we can be like, you know what, this other dog is coming too close to, let's set it aside. Let's get him away. Growling, vocalizing, I'd rather that than just the surprise attack. Like that usually happens when a dog is punished for giving indications, and people are like, they read the indications as the issue instead of as a communication. So that can yield some issues. But when I see a dog that's like, it's just acting like a little jerk, and its owner is not addressing the fact that that this dog is being pushy and acting like a little jerk. You have to like take the situation in its entirety and address the situation as a whole. And people treat dogs like babies because they're like, oh, and especially with small dogs. Hey, small dog, big dog, same dog brain.
Yeah.
If you've got a Mastiff that's jumping up on people, that's going to be a noticeable issue. If you've got a Yorkie poo that jumps up on people let it go because it's just a small dog.
Right, because it's just a small dog.
Yeah. Well, I'll always tell Cody when he starts jumping on people, I tell him to get down. And then everyone's like, no, it's okay. He's not bothering me. And I'm like,
he's bothering me.
It's not.
It's actually, yeah. It's like, it's actually it's not that he's bothering you. It's that's rude. It's like if a little kid goes into your house and starts taking your nail polish and painting on the walls, you're like, oh, I wanted this wall to be red anyway. So no, the kid's not allowed to go and deface other people's property.
Analogy. It's a great analogy. I want to say hello to some of the people in our chat right now. So Tamale, I don't know if you can see, there's the live comments over on the right-hand side of your screen. You can click on that and follow along with our live chatters. So Heimdall's Gate, who joins us every time we have a show, I swear.
Every time.
I love it. Hello, Heimdall's Gate. He says, it seems like you're being a bit of a helicopter dog parent, to be honest. And I go, what does that mean? Because I'd never heard that term before.
Oh, sure.
And they say, like a helicopter, hovering too much and not, you said, like, they say they're kidding. I don't know if Heimdall's is a girl or a guy. So they say this. No, Heimdall's is a guy. That's right. He says it's one of those terms that people who are always complaining about millennials use. And then my friend Stephanie, who's on as B Sanch mom, the trainer that Zumi works with, says that the problem isn't the dog; he's just being a dog. It's the human who doesn't know how to be the responsible parent that the pet needs.
And what I hear in that is providing the leadership that shows your dog what's appropriate, what's not, right? So it's also like it's a balance. Did either of you ever see Dog Show by the people that made Waiting for Guffman?
Best in Show?
Best in Show. That's right. Sorry. Yes. Oh, Sammy, you got to see this. It's so freaking funny.
Best in Show? We own it next time.
It's good. It's good.
Amazing.
So what I love about that, especially as someone who loves dogs and like loves training and all that, what I love about that show is they have this couple, this like neurotic couple that has this dog, and the couple in who they are, right? They just have this whole way of being where they have this like little squeaky toy that their dog's obsessed with, and maybe the dog is obsessed with it, but the way that who they are creates this like bumblebee, right? Like it's like they become they're wildly anxious, right? And so they go through this whole movie, and then at the end they end up like getting rid of their dog, and they get a new dog that's like really chill, and so their whole personalities change. What I love about that whole situation is that it's not the dog. Usually, what happens is if you establish yourself as a leader, and you remain calm, and your dogs look to you, you'll see them as you're walking down the street, as you encounter things, they'll kind of like look and see what you're doing, and then they mimic that because you're the leader. Mm-hmm. They want you to be in charge. They want you to be demonstrating that leadership that they can then follow and count on you for managing a situation and giving them cues on how to deal with it. So, because if you don't do that, then they're left to be like, oh, you're not going to handle this? Cool. Then it's up to me. And I'm 4 pounds and I got to like take on the world. No, man. No, you don't. Sit your butt down. We got this. Like,
I think it's an important discussion to have because this feeds very much into what I wanted to personally talk about on the topic of dogs. So we might as well just spill right over into that segue. And that being that, like, I have never, as a single woman, made the choice to own any kind of animal. I love animals. To be clear, I'm obsessed with animals. Like, love them. Like Sammy's dog Cody, forget about it. Like, he and I are in love. Not to gross everybody out on the show, but I make out with that dog. I love him. So I love animals. And, I'm a 37-year-old woman. And I lived single up until I was about 34, maybe. And, generally I have boyfriends and that sort of thing, but always had the autonomy of making like all of my own choices in the realm of whether or not I'm a person who is a dog, cat, or otherwise owner. Is that Edgar? And I've always chosen not to. I've definitely picked roommates that have animals, and those animals I have very much loved, and I have other people's animals in my picture roll on my phone, which I don't know if that's a weird thing or not, but I have several different other people's animals on my picture roll because I love them. I lived with a cat named Pearl, who once she and I moved in together, it was my bed she wanted to sleep in. Yeah. And her owner was like, fine, Pearl, don't sleep in my bed, right? And I think a lot of it does have to do with, my space, and I do make animals excited, and I do have a lot of like love available for them. But I've never chosen
too excited.
Yeah, too excited. Yeah. My energy is out of control. I get it. But I never chose to own my own animal. And the reason for it is the same reason I had always said that I was never going to have kids, if I'm going to be really earnest about it. And that is, I see animal ownership like a big responsibility.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you do.
Something that is a life choice, like something that will alter the choices that I make in my life. And so I've never chosen to own a cat, even though I have cat pants, I have cat shirts, I'm obsessed with kitty cats. Never chose to own a cat, never chose to own my own dog. And the reason is I love my work. I am also an activist and organizer in the political realm, and that takes up a lot of my life.
Yeah.
And so I just thought it was irresponsible for someone like me to get an animal, even though I had a lot of love for them. And, Tamale, what would you say, someone in my situation, who has always considered getting an animal and then always chose not to, what are the types of things that one should look at when making that kind of a choice, to bring in a new animal companion?
Well, first of all, I think that you made some really smart choices in assessing the amount, because I got that you have a lot of love to give, and that's great. And a really valuable part of being a dog mom or an animal parent of any kind is the, giving a crap that you're responsible for another being. That's great. And I'm glad that you were able to assess that. Yes, while I have all this love to give, I also have to balance it out with what my lifestyle actually yields in terms of monetary investment. Because that's another thing too. People don't take into consideration the money it takes to actually be a decent parent.
I was also living in poverty for a long time, so that was also actually a consideration of mine as well.
Yeah, and you have to, and that's it's it's great. So you can adopt an animal, but then it's like, what about the annual checkups? What about making sure that they, especially we live in a city, so it's like, you want to make sure you're up to date on your Heartgard, just any kind of I have my dogs on 2 different just maintenance medications for heartworms and also for flea and tick, because while this season, right, once it starts getting warm, rats are everywhere and they carry little fleas, and those are harbingers of disease. I want to make sure that that I'm just doing the right thing for my animals, right, for my dogs. I make sure I also, for me personally, I committed to an all raw diet. I want to make sure that whenever I adopt a dog, that I take on fully, not just can I feed this dog, or not just can I feed this dog, but I choose that I choose you, and you will have the best life available. And that means that I'm going to take you to the vet regularly. It means I'm going to train you so that you experience a level of comfort and ease and peace throughout your life. I'm going to feed you all raw food to make sure that your coat and you thrive, that you're a very healthy, happy animal. And that's just a standard I hold myself to. It doesn't have to be like that. You can just do like commercial kibble, and that's totally fine for most people. That's not, I'm just a little like about it. Like,
I'm starting to think that Piggy hates her food. I think Piggy hates her food. I want to try something different with her. I think she actually hates the food that she's on. So that's another thing I wanted to talk to you.
She has some stomach and digestive issues because of the way that, so Piggy was abused in her past life. Yeah. And so because of the way that her body is structured, because of the tiny kennel that she was in, she has some digestive issues. And I'm sure probably a raw food diet would be helpful with her digestive issues.
I kind of want to go in that direction because she doesn't seem like she won't have eaten all day, and I put her crappy food in front of her. I just assume it's crappy. Okay. Like I haven't tasted it. Well, and I put her crappy food in front of her, and she's like, and it's like, and then I feel like she's eating it out of like necessity, and then she barfs anyway. So it's like, what if I just gave her delicious like human food? Would it be the same?
For the raw diet stuff, and you can do all your research as well. There's it's challenging because there are some pretty high level kibble alternatives, and certainly those are available on the market. The higher level stuff is pricey. The lower level stuff is just like, it's not good. It's just not good for your dog. Imagine if you just like ate a food pellet every day forever, and it did not have access to, the things that your body's naturally made to process. It's funny because I'll say to people, they'll say, because I go to feed my dogs raw meat. So I do a prey model. So it's 80% meaty meat. So it's like muscle meat, 80%, 10% bone. So it's like marrow. They chew on it, it scrapes their teeth and keeps their teeth really clean. It also, the chewing activity activates their digestive system and engages their digestive system. And then the last little 10% is just organs. So it's like just other little like fish oil and different organs of the body to kind of help contribute the parts, come on, brain, come on. The things that they're not in the meat or the bones, right? So, and so people will say, yeah, exactly. Brains, yes, exactly. It's kind of gross, but it's also, my dogs love it because I just love when people are like, oh, you're not going to cook that? You're not going to cook, you're just going to give it to them raw? I'm like, in the wild, do you think dogs are like, I better bust out the kabaki?
They're starting the fire, they're putting the kindling down, they're rubbing two fucking sticks together, that's duh.
They're locating something that probably already got killed by somebody else, and they're going to go eat it. And it's disgusting. That's why if you get a dog bite, the saliva, the stuff that lives in their saliva is very gross. So, dog bites can get infected pretty easily, which is why, when I saw Sammy's scars, I was like, oh, it's a nightmare. So raw food, I think, is personally like the way to go. But I want to go back to Kira's question about managing the desire. Like, I want to take this on. I want a pet. I have a lot of love to give. Cats are kind of a great option in some ways around that because they're kind of smaller. They do want like a level of human interaction, even if it's like, don't touch me. It's still like you're in a house. But a lot of cats are super affectionate, and they can go to the bathroom in the house, right? And I don't recommend that people train dogs to use potty pads in the house unless they're older dogs. Then it's kind of like, yeah, buddy, so you work with that. You work with that. It's not their fault.
I have a girlfriend who's trained her cat to go to the toilet. It's incredible.
Yes, me too.
It's crazy. Isn't that the craziest thing?
That's just such a cool thing.
So
I mean, really come on. How many bragging rights would you get if you can get your dogs it on the toilet, dude. That'd be amazing.
I do not need any kind of motivation to do it. I would love it. It's so cool. Except Edgar would fall in every time. You know that. He's uncoordinated as all get out. So. Gosh.
Amazing. I want to get over to Heimdall's Gate.
Yeah.
It's a good one. So go ahead, Sammy, go read it.
So Heimdall's Gate wants to know, do you have any specific tips for females with male dogs? My chocolate lab is extremely well behaved, but if I'm not around, he gets protective of Jessica. He listens to her completely, but he does not like other males near her. For instance, she'll have to make him come sit down next to her and he will listen and do it, but he still gives the stink eye to whomever he does not like near her. The dog is very protective of the lady.
So the thing I would say right off the top is that I don't know these people, and I have not personally observed the dog in action, right? So it's hard for me to give a read on what's actually unfolding because behavior is very layered, and I don't know who the other people are that are coming around as well. So dogs are very, very in tuned to people's energy. So it is also possible the dog is responding to the gal's energy around that. That was actually my first guess, is that if you the gal, and I'm assuming as I'm reading through this, I'm assuming that the chocolate lab is a boy and Jessica is a human lady or a human female, right?
That's what it sounds like. And the dog doesn't like it when other human males are coming near her.
Right. So and again, acknowledging fully that I have not met these people and I've not seen, personally observed the situation unfold, because again, it's layered. My first response would be that my guess is that dog is actually reading the energy of the female and responding accordingly. Right. So, and maybe it's just like, cause that's usually, that's my read. Having never seen any of it go down. Which is kind of like tough because it could be something else, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because being this is a little bit tangential, but inside of what you were just saying, let's take Jessica for example, and let's assume Jessica's something like me. Let's just assume she's a lady like me, right? Yeah. And I'm pretty notorious for being a male hater. Like a man, motherfucking hater, right? And it's something I've been working on for many, many years because I recognized it. I think it was 3 years. No, I recognized it a long time ago, but I learned how to work with it. And I learned how it was impacting my life probably about 3 years ago. So it's something very much that I've been working on in my assumptions about men. And so I wonder if something that deep-seated could be the energy being detected. It's like females in general, and not to get too much into a political discussion or historical discussion, have
political discussion
every time. Good God. have been oppressed by males. It's interesting. I just wrote a story about that this morning, about a real case scenario that happened to me back in December. And I'm a powerful woman, and I still get into situations where I'm like in a fawn reaction, nervous state reaction. And so it's still there. And I wonder, can it be as deep seated as like a story about how men are out to hurt you?
So consider also that, so first of all that, right? So consider that dogs are wildly sensitive. We have bred them. The relationship that we've built with dogs as a creature, as a collaborator, they're wildly sensitive to us. There are some really great shows out there. I would highly recommend any of our watchers to see. I think it's like one of them's like Nova. It's like Decoding Dogs Decoded, I think was one of them. It's just fascinating because they're doing studies on something as simple as a dog will watch your eyes. They'll watch the whites of your eyes. And if you look this way, there's more white exposed. So the dog knows that you're looking that way. So the dog will look that way. It's so fascinating to me. Also, dogs, their ability to smell is outrageous. They smell in Technicolor. They smell in time. They smell in it's like watching a medium that's like actually a medium make sense of something out of thin air. That's what dogs do. Their noses are so intense and they're so in tune. So consider that when you're dealing with people in our emotional states, dogs read arousal. And I'm not talking about sexual arousal. I'm talking about a heightened, if your body temperature rises and you emit a little puff of whatever chemical cocktail comes out, arousal in any form, dogs are like, yep, I know what that is. And you can see they read it, right? So whether it's like, oh, this person is coming over to me, it's an arousal thing. Whether or not it's like it can be either like, oh, a person is coming over to me that I like, or it could be like, oh, this person's coming over to me that I don't like. Both of those are just, they fall under the umbrella of arousal. So a dog is going to pick up on that scent change and act accordingly. That would be my.
You know what's funny? As you're saying that, I'm thinking of recently Cody was around, we brought him into a new situation. There were other dogs. We were in a yard. People were playing. Like there's dogs and people all around. And there was one person there who had a migraine, was laying down. And Cody ignored everyone else, went right up to her, had never met this woman before, went up to her and snuggled up into her like a little spoon. And she was like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what I needed. And I was like, oh, my sweet boy.
Little lover, though, that dog.
Yeah. Well, and so that's another thing, too, is that people will say, I forgot who I heard this from, but someone was saying how, I think it was another trainer I work with. I'm almost positive. They were talking about how if your dog gets loose, right, and you're like, now my dogs do pretty well on recall. But sometimes, right? So it's like, it depends on when a dog gets locked in on something, it's really hard. It's really hard to get them off of it. The way that their brains work, which is why I work every single day. And Kira has seen this. Whenever I feed, we work on impulse interruption. We work on controlling our impulses. We always work on that, right? So it's like, my dogs don't just get to do whatever they want. I'll have their food, and I'll say like, Ohio, Obama, Osaki. And they're just like, nope. Like, they're like waiting, good dog. Okay. And then they get to eat, right? So we're just working those muscles of like, there's a thing I want and I want to go after it, but I'm waiting to see when it's okay. So the reason why we do that is that if we're on a crowded street, I want my dogs, or if they see something, or if there's something, you have a window, you have a short window, and you watch your dog will be like, they'll see it, it'll register, and then they'll have a reaction. It's either like an arousal reaction, like I want to go for that squirrel, or I'm scared, a fear reaction. There's a lot of different reactions they can have, responses they can have. But once they lock into a reaction, it's hard. They almost can't hear you. They're just like, they're done. They're locked in. So you want to get right in front of that locked in window and get it, right? So it's like, you want to interrupt that. So, so when you have a situation that's like, so one of the things that the trainers were talking about were, if your dog gets off leash in a crowded, like in an area where there's danger, call their name and just drop to the floor. Because whatever's happening out in the world, most times, if you drop to the floor and just lay on the ground, the dog is going to be like, what happened? And they're going to come right to you. Because they're yeah.
Oh, that's
interesting. Yeah. So I have not had to try it. I kind of want to try it just once to see what it's like. But in a
see what happens.
Controlled environment, of course, but like it's apparently quite effective. So
yeah, Cody's
to keep that in mind.
Cody's pretty good at recall. He goes off leash all the time with me. And he's pretty good at recall. And when he's distracted by something, I'll call his name and I crouch on the ground in a squatted position. And he just bows his head and walks back to me and just like curls into the cavernous area of my legs and just like lays down on his back. And he's like, okay.
But that's the thing. That's the thing also. And this is a whole other topic, right? And then Sammy, I do want to talk about, because we have about 14 minutes left in the show. I do want to talk about what the research that you looked at, because I think it's really interesting as well.
Yeah.
But also, one of the pieces that Sammy, you've nailed inside of your training with Cody, I believe I've nailed just as just in my existence. And Tamale, you've definitely nailed, is command. Like being able to be commanding. And this is something we've been working on with my husband, who might be one of the most gentle, sweet, loving.
He's got to work on that dad voice before you have a kid.
And his no is just not present. And so it's been taking practice on his part too. And so there's a certain training I'm seeing, Tamale, inside of the humans as well as the dogs, so I think that's been really experience.
I love it. Cause it's like, so just to speak to what Kira was saying, I love that it's common. Humans love dogs, and nobody wants to be mean to, I won't say nobody. Most people don't want to be mean to dogs. Most people feel bad being like, no, they don't want to be abusive. Nobody, especially when you have a situation like Piggy went through, like, you don't want to make her scared of you or be overbearing with her. There's a concern around that. And I totally get that. And also what's real is that dogs respond to a pack, they're gregarious. They respond well to pack mentality. And the hope is that you establish yourself. And I totally agree with what Kira is saying. If you are commanding, I don't beat my dogs. I don't have to. I go, no. And they're like, oh, sorry. It's like, I've never, I don't have to go to that level. I don't and hopefully you don't, and not to say that beating your dogs is a place that you should
go at some point. Yeah.
But making sure that your dog understands its place and respects its place. And that's not a bad thing. You don't want a Mastiff being like, oh, I can do whatever I want. Hell no. What you want are dogs that understand their place and respect the bounds of your relationships. And so, I was doing this the other day. I had a former partner who had a kid, and she was about 7 years old. And I was training the dogs, and one of the dogs did something that was totally out of bounds, not acceptable. And what is important is that dog gets that is unacceptable and shan't happen again. And how I do that is that I utilize my voice, and I scared the 7-year-old. And so we started kind of being playful about it. And I said, I would say to the dog, when I'm correcting the dog, I'd say, no, that is bad. No, don't do that. No. And then as I'm saying it, I would say, just so you know, I may sound like I'm very angry, but I'm not. I'm fully in control. In fact, this dog is so darn adorable that I have to keep myself from laughing. Because the 7-year-old would be over here laughing. And I said, it's making me want to smile, but I can't let the dog know, or else this is going to be ineffective. And the whole time the dog's like, oh, I totally am sorry. And the kid is giggling, because that's the thing. You have to be convincing. And so that dog respects you. And also you can play with it like that, so that the kiddo is like, oh, okay, this is just them doing what they need to do to have this established.
And I think it shows a great lesson to the kids that there's a choice inside of emotion and reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think that's a really interesting example to show, I can look angry and not be angry, and I can be angry and not look angry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And also that this behavior is not a reactionary behavior out of rage. This is an intentional choice. This is a tool that I'm using to get an outcome over here. And it's intentional, and it's not me just flying off the handle, right? I think it's really important, especially for kids and dogs, to know you can trust me not to get angry and then fly off the handle. Me saying to you like this is a choice. And I'm actually using these as a tool. That's a tool. So that was just a funny thing that happened. And so teaching people to kind of get to a place where they practice being mean, that's a fun thing. I've been looking into possibly helping like hold some dog training classes because I used to, when I was in 4-H, I would teach kids how to train their dogs. And we used to drill that because kids are like, oh, I don't know. And the dog is as big as I am. And it's like, no, we're going to teach you how to lead this dog. So I think I would like to actually teach classes in that because it's a fun thing. And you build this relationship with your dog and your dog responds to that. And then it just shifts your whole experience about being a dog owner.
And I really could see that kind of a class being something really like powerful and engaging for humans, not only on the level of, oh, I'm going to be able to train and lead my dog, but in the level of like, what is there for me around being commanding and being the leader and being the boss? Because, you know, everywhere you go, there you are. So if you have an issue with being the leader and the boss with your dog, where is that showing up everywhere else in your life?
Definitely.
You know?
Absolutely.
So I think that those kind of classes could be really an interesting way, like an access point, right?
Yes.
For people to really find their power around being powerful and being advocates for themselves and and by extension for their animals, but really for themselves, right?
Yeah.
So that's really neat. And then before, because we have like 8 minutes left, I want Sammy to tell us a little bit about her research and then anything that Tamale has to say in reaction to that.
Cool.
So, our speakers on the side too. I wanted to say that
Tamale, go ahead.
And so I'm sorry, Sammy, I don't mean to jump in front of you on this. I just want to acknowledge like the Hemdell's Gate. I was looking at this. The one that's I think that's most likely correct because Murphy, the dog male. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. See, right. So he follows her instructions. It's just unusual for him to show aggression like that. So that's what I'm reading. And you know, again, it's a layered experience that I have not personally witnessed, but that's just consider that whenever you see a situation like that the dog is going off of what the human is creating, and that there is a relationship there. It's like when I'm walking my dogs, all I see is like other people and their dogs and their relationships. It's like it shows up for me all the time, and I see it, and I'm just like, that dog, respect, or those dogs, those two small white dogs who are screaming like they're being murdered and playing and hugging.
Those were the guys I was like, oh my God, could you imagine if those babies were Mastiffs? Nightmare.
Yeah. Same dog brain, yo. Same dog brain. So
and the two people walking them were
clueless,
definitely in their 70s or plus. You know, and good thing they were 6-pound dogs.
And I think it's you. For me, I see that and I'm like, I don't give a crap if it's a 3-pound teacup, whatever. That you don't have a relationship with your dog that indicates that you are providing leadership. Those dogs were out of control.
Yeah.
And it's like, what you have to get too is that when a dog's life is, I can't count on you, so I'm going to react to everything and bark all the time and scream bloody murder and be a nuisance. That is not a great life for that dog either.
No,
right?
that's for you. An anxious life. And when a dog doesn't have like what I've read when I got Cody, because I read like Raising a Puppy for Dummies and all of the articles online and did so much research. And what I got from it was that if a dog has to be the leader, then they're going to be very anxious because they have to be in control of all of this external stimuli. Whereas if they know that you're in charge, they can like sit back and be comfortable. They can chill out. Yeah. And so I was like, I want my dog to chill out because I get overstimulated in this world and like I can navigate it because this world was built for me. This world wasn't built for my dog.
Mm-hmm. And consider that if they feel like they have to defend themselves, or they like, if you have failed as your job in your job as a leader and your dog acts out and bites someone, they pay with their lives. It's not just like oops, sorry. It's like, no, they get put down. That's the penalty for screwing up in that world.
Yeah.
So,
you know, and we were talking about those, you know, and this might be a controversial comment, but I'm going to put it out there anyway, because it's what was there for me. And I like I like that on this show we get to really be fully ourselves and like what's there for us. But with the little white dogs, right? And saying like, oh, no, it's fine. It's okay if they act that way because they're little and they're not going to hurt anything, is similar in attitude, in my opinion, of, let's say, a female hitting her male partner. Right? You can say, well, she's the weaker of the two. She's not actually going to hurt him, blah, blah, blah. And it's still fucking wrong.
Yeah. Well, and I also get worried for those little dogs because if a little dog acts that way toward a larger dog, that little dog is done. Like, how many little dogs have I heard of acting out toward a larger dog and getting killed as a result of it? Because that larger dog can just chomp once.
It's like, what the, really? Okay.
You don't want a dog fight between your little Chihuahua and a Mastiff.
No. You know? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I just see so much of, especially when you're in the realm of outside of the realm of like a working dog, inside the realm of a companion animal, a Chihuahua, a Chiweenie, the little tiny puffy fluffy dog. Like, I love those dogs. Keep their butts in check. Just because they're tiny and you can like literally hold them up doesn't mean that they get to be a jerk. It's same dog brain, man. Mind your darn manners.
Yeah.
It's just, and the dog lives a lower stress life as a result. And I think that's what we got to get as humans is that, you know, when it comes to being a human, you know, for many of us, one of our biggest values is freedom. Yeah. And we are not dogs. And dogs are not humans. And that's not the conversation for a dog. You know, for a dog to be comfortable, freedom is not the place for them. They need the herd. They need the pack. They need structure and leadership. And I think that's probably one of the biggest disconnects of disciplining a dog for a human is that, well, I wouldn't want to be yelled at that way. I wouldn't, you know, like, and it's like, yeah, but you're not a dog. Right?
Also consider that in the wild, when a puppy is growing up and a puppy steps out of bounds, that mom bites them. They create a noise and a discomfort that is in alignment with, that does not work for this. Knock it off. And dogs learn that. That's how, you know, it's like there is people, and I agree with you, Kara, like there's a thing about people they put human values and wants and needs on dogs, and that's not the best way to serve the animal you're responsible for. Look at what they do naturally in the wild. What structures work best for that animal? How does a mom dog communicate to their puppy? You know, what's good, what's bad, like how to behave, how not to behave. How do they do that? Mimic that, and you're going to have a dog who gets it because you're communicating with that animal in a way that they understand and supports their natural ingrained behavioral codes. So, you know, it's like you can translate that over to what people like. Okay, in the wild, service dogs don't go and, you know, turn off a light switch in the wild. Fine. But I promise you, when you're engaging the training that goes along with that, you're setting that dog up for success, which is what the mom dogs do. And then when the dog does the right thing, you know, it's like, oh, you get fed. Oh, well, there are still those ingrained structures present. And I love personally for my training, I love to make it so that you give your dogs opportunities to make choices. Right? I'm always watching them. Watchful eye, right? I give them opportunities to make choices. And when they go and they select their toy and they chew on the toy, good job. Just a verbal, good job, good choice, good choices. And that way they're not chewing up your shoes, someone else's shoes. You know, it's like they're making the right choices, and they're getting that that's what you should be doing.
Acknowledging the good things as well.
Yeah. It only took one mistake for Cody to learn that my stuffed animals are not his stuffed animals. He grabbed one because he loves stuffed animals. He tears them apart. And he grabbed one of mine off the bed one time, and I snagged it from him, and I was like, "This is mine!" And he
Yep. Oh, he's such a sensitive little guy too. Like I just love him. He's so sweet.
Okay, so what's some of the numbers on adoptions during Corona?
So it may not be a surprise to anyone, but pet adoption has skyrocketed since quarantine. People are lonely. They want companionship. you can't get hugs from other humans right now, really. So people need that physical affection, even though we can talk through video. People want to snuggle, and they're having difficulty finding that. So I found out that adoption and fostering applications, so not the actual fostering or adoption, but the applications have increased by 500%.
Wow.
Since the second half of March.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And the actual fostering and adoption of these pets has increased by 122%. Some stats I looked at, that was between March 15th and April 15th, 122%. But since the end of March till now is 150%. So, yeah, so adoption and fostering has skyrocketed. I read an article from a shelter in where was that shelter? Oh yes, Animal Care Centers of New York City. Said that at any given time they have over 600 animals. Right now they have less than 100.
Wow.
And this is
wow.
Yeah. So
pandemic has done so well for like animals.
For animals wanting homes. Yeah. So the shelters were really concerned because, initial thought, okay, there's a pandemic happening. They're concerned people are going to lose jobs, won't be able to donate to shelters. People are not going to be able to take care of their animals. They won't be able to afford it. So we're going to be getting all these animals in, but not having the money to support them. And the opposite.
People love animals. People love animals. Yeah.
Love animals. So of course there's like the benefit of that emotional support and love that people are getting, that physical affection. And it, for us humans who like pandemic's going down, we lose all of our structure. We lose, we're working from home. We're, having an animal can keep us structured, can keep us routined through this anxious time. It keeps us present rather than focused on like this like grand scale what's happening in the world. It keeps us present and focused in the moment if we're training a new animal. Fills in the time in silence, brings us hope. So of course there's many benefits to having a pet, but I also was really interested in looking at the challenges. I was walking Cody recently and I noticed, because I walk Cody, I take him for a 45-minute walk every day. And so as I'm walking him, and in Chicago, there's bumping into so many people trying to keep 6-foot distance. And what went through my head one day was like, wow, we're going to have a lot of really unsocialized dogs after this, because these dogs are not being able to go to the dog park and play. They're not being able to be introduced to each other. They're not meeting other humans outside of their owners. Like they're not learning how to interact in normal society. They're just in these homes. So I was very intrigued by that, which is why I looked into this topic. So some of the challenges that I thought up and saw in the articles was not being able to socialize, decreased pet services like vets being closed, the challenge to the changing routine when we go back to work, and like being able to set up our animals appropriately for that. That if you get sick with coronavirus and you have a new pet, you're not going to be able to take care of them.
Yeah.
And you can't invite someone over to take care of them.
Yeah. That's a big one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like Tamale was saying, the cost of taking care of a pet if you do get furloughed or lose your job during this time. And a challenge that I saw with cats while I was doing this, that's mostly specifically about dogs, but this with cats is that cats can be more fickle and hidden at the beginning. So if you get a cat, you might be really disappointed that the first 3 weeks with them, they're hidden under your bed.
Yeah. You're like, damn it, I needed a partner, and this kitty doesn't want to be anywhere near me.
Yeah.
So I was really interested in what Tamale had to say about this, but I did see some tips and tricks for what to do to like adjust your dog to normal society when getting a pet during quarantine. something I saw was that it can be helpful if you find sounds online to play in the home for the dog, like honking sounds, skateboarding sounds, children playing in parks, and like daily start the sounds at a low level and gradually increase the volume so that the dog is less anxious and more accustomed to hearing those things, because once normalcy picks up again, they'll have to get used to that. I saw one that said to dress up in costumes for your animals because they won't be able to recognize you, and then get more comfortable with other humans. So I saw that as a interesting suggestion.
I was just going to make a horrible joke about blackface, and I'm just not going to do it now.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I was like, just, like, be careful about how you're dressing up. Okay, everybody.
Yeah, be careful how you're dressing up. And then something else it said, and I was a little curious about this one because I thought that it sounded like something that would inspire a lot of anxiety because it makes me anxious. So a lot of neighborhoods in Chicago right now are doing neighborhood shout outs to the frontline workers. So in my neighborhood, it's at 8 p.m. every day. They start ringing cowbells. They start hooping and hollering. Definitely something Cody's not very used to. And something they said was take your dog out during that time to get them adjusted to like, hey, this is the world. It can be really stimulating. But I was kind of curious, like, is that necessarily something that you want to jump into right away?
So we just got Heimdall's comment on hashtag canceled. Cancel culture. Fuck.
I also appreciate Heimdall's comment. The one right above that where about the cat with the kittens. I commend you for being very picky about who you let adopt. Because people do awful things to animals that they get for free when people are just trying to offload them. So first of all, I just want to acknowledge Sammy. Thank you for doing that research. That's so great. And I am delighted to hear that people have taken this step to like go to go out there and adopt and foster and all that stuff. My concern is that once the pandemic is in a place where we can kind of get back to normal or whatever that even looks like, is that people will be able to balance that home work life. My hope is that we've demonstrated that we can do work from home situations. Like everyone's doing this, or most people are doing this. So perhaps, businesses can, they've been forced to make that shift. So my hope is that shift becomes something that's not necessarily so out of the realm of reality, that people actually can maybe split their work week so they're working at home and all that. I think it kind of harkens back to the thing that Kira was talking about earlier in terms of being mindful of what you actually can provide to an animal that if you choose to adopt. And I think something that people can consider is co-parenting an animal. If you have a roommate who also wants to have a dog, but you guys know that this isn't something that you can do on your own. Co-parenting is a really nice way to do that. If you have a good friend who is up for the challenge of doing that, co-parenting is a good way to go to balance that responsibility. It's the downside is that it's not necessarily, as we start to go back to whatever real life looks like, it may not be sustainable, right? So my hope is that people are attached to their dogs by that point and don't. That relinquishing them is not an option, right? That's my hope.
Right.
That said, I would say that, this is my take on this. All right. So I hear a lot about, like, oh, well, we don't want to cause anxiety. And I'm not talking about people have their own layered issues. And this is not what I'm addressing. I'm talking about specifically with dogs. Dogs are very, very adjustable. They watch you. And if you're freaked out about stuff, they're going to be freaked out about stuff. Mm-hmm. If you're calm about stuff, they're going to be calm about stuff. They're watching you for cues always. So if you're playful, what I heard in some of those suggestions that you're being playful with your dog, like I'm dressing up, I'm blah, 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 like that's great. The reason why that will be helpful is because your dog is going to see a variety of things and they're going to be watching how you are about those things. That's why whenever I'm training my dogs, I introduce them as if one of my dogs ride on my motorcycle with me. And that happened because we graduated steps, right? And so now they ride on my bike with me. The thing about dog parks are actually, I love them, but they're also awful. And it's because people that do not have self-awareness about their dog's aggression will bring their dogs to a dog park. Yeah. And I see a lot of people being like, I want to socialize my dog. I want to socialize my dog. Dogs have a period in their early puppyhood that lasts for a couple of months. And it's an imprint period. And if your dog is of that age and it has a traumatic experience, it leaves a deep, it scares them, and they're forever unpacking it, right? So yeah. I'm all for socializing dogs with other dogs that you know are going to be responsible, right? Yeah. Lucy, when she was a puppy and she was going through that period of development, we had an older dog in the building that was huge, big dog named Ozzy. Love that dog. He was so good with her that socializing with her with him taught her how to play, how to develop a soft bite. So it's that play bite. It's not on your hand, obviously, but like on another dog, it's not a real bite. It's like a soft bite, so they can play and tug and do all their things and be gentle with other dogs. They're learning how to play. If you get a dog in that mix at a dog park who doesn't know how to play appropriately with a puppy, and that puppy has a bad experience, you can really do some damage. So, in service to like, oh, we're socializing, it's like just letting a bunch of dogs loose in a park is not the best idea. I do like taking my dogs to the dog park. I try to go off peak hours. I do like taking Cody to the dog park because I brought him once and I left immediately because it's, he's a small dog and he's 12 pounds. And there are a lot of bigger dogs at the dog park. And what I saw, and as I already said, I'm not comfortable with big dogs that I don't know and trust, and that I can't take down myself. I brought Cody into there, and there were people with large dogs just playing on their phone. I'm like, you're not even walking your dog.
Wow, really?
Yep.
I'm nervous the whole time.
I'm not going to be responsible for your dog. I was like, nope, we're going. I'm not staying here. People with large dogs not paying attention. I'm out.
All right, guys. Speaking of being responsible, it is 12:13. I have to get on another show in 17 minutes. So we got to wrap this baby up.
We're having so much fun.
This is a really good topic, clearly. Because I'm like, holy cow, there's still so much we could talk about. So Heimdall says, she's so right about people who get animals for free. This is not my first rescue rodeo. People will call it like it's a youth television. It's like, no, this isn't an interview. I'm testing you, not begging you.
Good.
That's really great. But to wrap this up, Tamale, I want people to be able to find you. You're not a dog trainer, but I do want people to be able to find you. So tell us where they can find you.
So you can find me all across social media and Venmo and Cash App at Tamale Rocks, ROCKS. I did a soft launch of a dog training business that I am considering. I'm kind of like, I soft launched it, I think a year and a half ago now. And I definitely, if you look up, if you go to tamalerocks.com, that's my website for all the other stuff that I do. I'm a comedian. I work for Second City. I tour. I was actually on a 2-year tour when COVID happened. So I got to cancel my tour and do like a take 2, so you can find me there. And if you're interested in having, setting up a consultation for training, I'm happy to do that. Yeah.
Awesome. Wow. I didn't even know that. Jeez Louise. Well, I'm glad that we got that opportunity for you to share that. And thank you for everybody for joining us. Yeah, thanks for coming, Tamale. Thanks for accepting our invitation. Thanks to Heimdall's Gate. Thanks to Stephanie for joining us and commenting. We had 7 people on the chat today. Woo!
Yeah, nice.
Well, in the audience, that is, on the chat. Actively, there was only 2. But very, very important folks. And so, awesome. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Sammy, anything else for you?
Yeah, I would say, if you're a regular watcher of our show and you enjoy us, just share us on your social media page. Share our videos, share our YouTube page so that others can see us. Make sure you are subscribing and encouraging others to do so. Like our videos, ring that bell so that you can get notified every time we post a new one. Yeah, and follow us on Instagram and Facebook because we're there too.
Cool. All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Molly.
Bye.
Bye.